I know you wrote an article, the draft coming up, 2024 draft, not very deep, and you had two reasons why. Take us through the article and what you found.
Well, the premise of the article came from a tweet I saw on Sunday from Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl. Now, there's a difference when I say the draft is not deep. I'm not saying at the top. The top end is very good. There's depth throughout, but I think where the draft falls off and where Jim Nagy alluded to, even saying, quote, by late December, our Senior Bowl fell apart in rounds 5 through 7. Teams alluded to be trading away day 3 picks of reserve value or selecting players from their free agent sideboard in April. I think it was interesting that it kind of stood out to me that way because, it's one thing for draft analysts to kind of say like, oh, the depth in this class kind of falls off by a certain point pretty significantly. But considering who Jim Nagy is, how important the Senior Bowl is, the NFL personnel and the influence that the Senior Bowl has in the draft process, to see that kind of come up was a little eyebrow raising to me. And to me, obviously, two things stand out to me. And going along with number one, and I mentioned this near the top, we had 54 non-seniors declare for the draft. That sounds like a good amount. That's almost 2 full rounds. But the year prior, it was 69, and going all the way back to 2018, it was 106. So that's a drop of almost half over a 6-year span. Now, there's two reasons for it. Number one, NIL, and this is something I'm 100% in favor of. College athletes sticking around because they don't have to go feel like they have to go early in the NFL to get a payday or whatever. They can be taken care of in college more than they ever were, and I'm 100% behind that. It gives a chance for players who may have been on the fence about wanting to go pro but decided to do it because of money. It gives them an idea that maybe they want to stick around for another year, get a chance to develop and maybe have a chance to be drafted higher, get a little better NFL payday coming up. And I think that can ultimately strengthen a draft down the road. But the second and more significant thing to me is back in 2020 in the fall, when the NCAA granted every player on every fall sports roster a bonus year of eligibility because of COVID, I think we understood the role of time. And in hindsight, there's still reasoning to it because we didn't know how the future of football was going to look at that time. But what we've seen is, the rise of the super senior. We've seen so many players just opt to go back into school for that 5th or 6th season. And I even cited some examples. Quarterback Casey Thompson, who had already played at Texas, Nebraska, and Florida Atlantic, going to play his 7th season of college football at Oklahoma. And then Cam McCormick, a tight end from Miami, who has suffered multiple season-ending injuries, staying in Miami for his 9th season of college football. And to give you an idea of how crazy that is, when he came to Oregon, he was in the same recruiting class as Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert's about to enter his 5th season in the NFL. So ultimately, that's not what the rule I think was designed to do. And I don't think you can fault a player for wanting to do that. It's legal. It's within the parameters of the system. And there's ultimately nothing inherently wrong with a player taking advantage of the system. It just what it does is it ultimately hurts the draft product now. And for a team like the Browns, who has 5 picks in the final 3 rounds of the draft, if the depth in this class kind of falls off significantly, then not only does the depth of player, the quality player they can pick from kind of drop off, but it also hurts the draft value. Now, great front offices, great scouting staffs can work around that. We've seen teams like the Rams and Lions find, gems in the late rounds, and there's no reason the Browns can't do that. We've seen Jerome Ford and Cam Mitchell go from 5th round picks to being contributors. Ronnie Hickman at UDFA, getting a pick 6 against the Jets in Week 17, for example. It's just going to make it a little tougher for those teams to find it if there's fewer gems available.